Hello everyone, my name is David Gunn and welcome to Issues and Answers. And today we are going to speak of a very polarizing, controversial issue, and that is the issue of gay marriage. This issue has torn apart the country politically, it's torn it apart religiously, and has torn it apart socially. And everyone seems to have an opinion on this very hot button issue, but we can't seem to come to a basic consensus, something that we can all agree on till we can resolve this issue and finally move on. And basically, I think the problem is a mere problem of semantics and the words we use, and the hot button word being that word marriage. In the United States at this time in history, marriage has gained over the centuries a very Christian, a very quote-unquote religious and sacred connotation. Now, unfortunately, people on both sides may not realize that the definition of marriage has not always been anywhere near close to what we know of in our times here in the year of 2008. Matter of fact, if we go back a few hundred years, going back to the ancient feudal times and maybe even before, marriage was a way that a man expressed his ownership over a woman, and his wife was how he saw his wealth and his value, and his children were as well. Basically, a man's wife was his property, and his children were his property and his progeny, and they were how his worth and his value, even monetarily, was decided. So basically, a man's wife and his children spoke to his wealth in the same way that his land spoke to his wealth. And marriage did not always have the sacred connotation that it has today. But today the word marriage has gained a spiritual, a religious, and a sacred connotation. And I think that's why it causes such an uproar in the Christian community, among others, versus the gay community. And that's why they're so adamant to keep gay people from participating in the institution of marriage, because it has become to mean a sacred thing. And basically, my opinion is that those of us who are on the left side, those of us who are in favor of gay marriage, have basically joined the fight in the words of semantics. And as long as we continue the fight for this one little word marriage, this debate is never going to be solved. This problem is never going to be solved. We're never going to come to any kind of resolution. And basically, I believe in a civil union. I believe that we need to come to a moral and a civil consensus that basically everyone in the country, whether they support gay marriage or the homosexual quote-unquote lifestyle, whatever, I believe the majority of people in this country are fair-minded people. And they don't want to outlaw anyone. They don't want to stop anyone from gaining the right to declare anyone they want as their spouse. But at the same time, we are a very pluralistic and quote-unquote religious nation. And we have adopted the Judeo-Christian ethic in America. And the Judeo-Christian ethic in America in no way supports two men or two women entering into the quote-unquote sanctity of marriage. That's why I believe the best way to solve this whole debate is to give anyone that prefers it a civil union. Which means if two men want to have a civil union or two women want to have a civil union, that they will be allowed to do so, and their ceremony is a civil ceremony that gives them all of the rights of a quote-unquote married couple. And that way, we do not infringe upon anyone's religious beliefs that does not believe in the marriage of people of the same gender or the practice of homosexuality. That way, we completely divorce the whole issue from the sacred and the spiritual connotations that come up when you use the actual word marriage. And that's just been the biggest trouble all along. And I think as long as those on the left side continue to force, we want equal marriage equality, we want marriage rights, that word is still going to be an inflammatory word that has the strong connotations, and it is always going to bring about resistance. That's why I believe that the answer to this whole debate is a civil union which gives the couple every legal right that a married couple will have, the right of power of attorney, the right to have a do not resuscitate order, the right to have just final say over the person as your spouse, the same way that a legal husband and wife have pretty much final say over each other. If one is sick in the hospital, you can visit because as a spouse you're considered a family member. If there is a do not resuscitate order, you can sign for surgery, and all of those things, as well as insurance rights, and basically just every single right that a married couple has. As long as we give that in a civil union, to me, the whole issue is solved. But as long as we keep trying to push the word marriage, you're just going to come up against a lot of resistance unnecessarily when we could finally come to a conclusion with this and let it go. I believe that once we come to the consensus as a country that we're going to allow civil unions for consenting adults of the same sex, then I believe we're going to move further down the path of social tolerance, where the issue of homosexuality is considered anyway. And unfortunately, I do believe that those on the far political left in the gay rights movement, ever since the 70s, they have radically fought to basically have the John Q. Publics of America completely accept homosexuality, just to say that it's just a normal, everyday thing. And it would be good if that was an actually attainable goal, but I don't really think it is. I believe the best in the true worldview, the best thing that you can hope for is that people tolerate you. They have the idea of live and let live. They may not necessarily understand your life or your quote unquote lifestyle or your orientation or whatever you want to call it. They may not think that it's perfectly moral. They may not think that it's natural, but they are willing to tolerate you. They are willing to let you live and grow and pursue happiness in the way that you would like, and then they want to move on with their lives. Because basically, when you ask the question, my friend a few years ago during the political campaign for George Bush, when he was trying to get the constitutional amendment signed against gay marriage, my friend always asked me to say, how does this issue affect you personally? If two men get married, what does it mean to you? And most people couldn't really answer that in a logical fashion. They were kind of stumped, like, really, what does it mean to me? Actually, it means nothing. And I think when it comes down to most people, without a hard opinion on the right side against it, it really doesn't mean anything to them. You do what you do, and that's fine. And basically, I think that's what we need to go for, is a tolerant attitude. We need to come to let's agree to disagree, but let's everyone be able to pursue their happiness and live and let live. And basically, a civil union, I think, pushes us further down that path of social tolerance when it comes to the issue of homosexuality. Because I don't believe we're ever going to get to the point where it never raises an eyebrow, or some people don't think it's weird, or some people don't think it's a little off color, or maybe a little perverted. And to me, that's fine, because the whole idea of America is that everyone is allowed to have their opinions. If I don't like the way you live, then I don't like the way you live. I think you're perverted, then I think you're perverted. If I think what you do is immoral, then I think it's immoral. But I don't have the right to take that opinion and try to stop you from living your life. In America, you have the right to live your life, whether I think it's right, wrong, or whatever, and to do pretty much what you would like within some sort of reason. And I think that's where the whole philosophy of tolerance would lead us to, and a civil union would lead us right down that path. And that's pretty much where we need to be. We need to stop fighting for quote-unquote marriage equality and stand up for a civil union, so we can finally stop this divisive issue from basically tearing the country apart, and we can move on. I'm David Gunn, and this has been Issues and Answers, and I want to know what you think.